Hey guys, it's Jason with the Board Game Mechanics, and today we're going to take a look at a game all about trying to figure out which disciples you have in your hand called Disciple Detective. Disciple Detective is a 2 to 4 player cooperative or competitive game by Funhill Games. It has a biblical theme about the 13 or 14 disciples if you count Paul. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to determine which disciples you are holding in your hand. Trick here is your opponent can see your hand, or your teammates can see your hand. You can see all their hands. So you never know what's in your hand. You're trying to figure that out. Similar to a Hanabi, but some of these cards on them have little quirks that are going to break the rules and make it harder to figure out which card you have. So let's go down to the table, see how it works. Alright, so here's Disciple Detective. Normally I do a playthrough, but this one's tricky to do a playthrough by myself, so I'm just going to kind of talk you through how the game works. So let's go ahead and start talking about it. So let me tell you about what you get in the game, and then I'll talk about how the game kind of plays a little bit. So what you get in the game is you're going to get 4 of these, because this is a 2 to 4 player game. So you get dry erase markers, you get clue tokens, which are going to look like this. You're going to get a timer that's going sand timer. I think it's 30 seconds because you have 30 seconds to take actions. You're going to get 14 of these cards, which I'll explain in a second. They're disciples. And you're going to get a card that shows a list of all the suspects. The cool thing about these cards is you can write on them to take notes, which is pretty slick. Same goes with these cards. You can write on them as well. All right, so the way this game works is everyone's going to get a hand of 4 cards. So I would get the 4 cards. I wouldn't look at them. I'm going to hold them out away from me, kind of like this. So this would be how I would be looking at my hand. So the opponent would see this. I would see this. So if you've ever played the game Hanabi, that's going to be a little bit similar there. Then on your turn, you have 3 things that you can do. So ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out all of the disciples that are in the game. I mean, it's going to be all of them, but you got to figure out which ones you're holding in your hand, which ones are moved from the game, and all of that by giving each other clues. So on your turn, you can do one of 3 things. You can give somebody a clue. So say I'm looking at this player's hand. I can spin one of these clue tokens, just put it in the box, and I could give them one clue based on one of these items in the back. So if you look at this sheet right here, all the people have certain amounts of traits that they have. So you can see like Peter has all of them. Thomas, he only has 1 trait, which is right there. And some of them also have quirks, which are going to let them break rules. So for example, let me show you what some quirks look like. They're on the front of the card, but since the cards are hard to see, they're also on this card. So you can look at it without, giving people clues of what they have. So for example, if this card is in a player's hand and I give the clue that, say the hand is this. So I give the clue that I'm going to give the even or odd clue. So I would say odd and odd, because Judas is always the opposite of what he is, because he's a traitorous Judas. So that's going to, as this game goes on, it's going to help figure out who is who by giving certain types of clues. You can cross off stuff in the back. You can circle it. You can, make some notes down here in the paper to however help you figure out what you can do. So first thing you can do is you can give clues. Second thing you can do is you can order the cards in a player's hand. Now some of this will always negate itself. So for example, John will always be the last person in that you'd say in order. So even though he's number 1, he's going to be ordered last. So if this was this player's hand, I would say, oh, sorry, you can't see it. First, second, third, last. And that would help the other player know what cards they have in their hand. Third thing you can do is you can And ordering and giving clues gets rid of one of these tokens, just like in Hanabi. Third thing you can do is you can guess someone in your hand. So say this is my hand, and I think this is Judas. So I flip it, I reveal it, or I would say it's Judas. If it's Judas, I reveal it. I take one of these tokens that's out of the game and bring it back in. If it's not Judas, the opponents will say, no, not Judas. Stays in my hand. We have to get rid of another token. So you're going to go in the cooperative game, you're going to go till you figure out all the cards. If you want to make the game harder, you can throw in Paul. He's number 14. So that'll just make the game a little tougher to win. And competitive, if you want to play competitive, you want to be the first player. It plays all the same, so the same 3 things you can do in your turn. But you want to be the first player to get rid of all the cards in your hand. So if I could get rid of all my cards before every other player, I would be the winner of the competitive game. That's Disciple Detective. I know, there wasn't a playthrough, but I kind of gave you an overview. I think that can show you how the game kind of plays and works. But that's Disciple Detective. Let's go up to the top, see what we think about it. All right, well, there it was. I didn't do a playthrough, but I did tell you how the game works. So hopefully that gives you a good idea if this would be a game for you. So like I said in the playthrough, like I said when I was playing the game, it's Hanabi with some special powers on the cards. And the fact that you can write on the cards on the back to kind of, keep track of what you have is a really nice touch. I like that quite a bit. So this is Funhill. Their art is pretty consistent. It looks like that. I mean, this is a little more anime than some of their other art, but it's still, it's their art. The box cover actually looks more like the rest of their games, so this looks more like Wisdom of Solomon right here than some of the card art does. This is a pretty straightforward game. The hardest part is figuring out the quirks of the disciples, but because you can't always see the cards, you can use this, and this gives you a pretty good idea of everything that everybody does, what their traits are, what their quirks are, all that stuff. So it doesn't give it away if I'm like staring at your cards and then I look down. Yeah, it's a good thing. So this isn't my favorite game, but it's not a game that I dislike by any stretch of the imagination. I don't particularly like that Hanabi thing where you turn cards facing everybody else and you don't know what cards you have in your hand. I don't like that. But as far as that mechanism goes, this game does that pretty well. So I liked it. You can run the cards. I like the timer in case somebody's getting frozen up. You can use that timer and make them go for 30 seconds. And I like that the cards have quirks to make it a little harder. I might have said quirks, but I also like that you can run the cards. So quirks, the fact that you can run the cards and the timer to speed the game along, pretty cool. I also like that you can play it competitively and cooperatively, which is a nice twist because I've only played Hanabi a couple times. So I don't know if you can play that competitively. I think it's only cooperative. So being able to play this competitively is really cool. So yeah, that's Disciple Detective from Funhill Games. If you like Bible-themed games, you like interesting little card games, check it out. I'm Jason with the Board Game Mechanics, and as always, keep gaming.